Once again, I'm getting inundated on my For You page with leftist political content creators in Canada, specifically men. And I say that they're leftist only because they're claiming that they're leftist. But then I watch a video of this guy explaining what he feels victimized for. And all I'm sitting there thinking to myself is I don't need to see the rest of what happened because this video in itself is so damning. I don't understand how these men don't seem to understand or grasp the fact that you using the very same tactic that Elon Musk used to throw a hail, and you think you're leftist? You think that you're part of the left, or you're trying to be a spokesperson for the left by creating political content on the internet while knowing nothing about the people that live and occupy the left. You know nothing of their struggles, you know nothing of the space, trying to make yourself a spokesperson for that while doing nothing to deconstruct or address any of the issues that other people in that group identify with.
Today's been a difficult one. Really deciding whether or not I want to continue with TikTok. And now because a content creator decided to use me as an example, make an example out of me effectively, I'm being bullied. Something I'm very familiar with. But I know I'm being bullied for a very unusual reason that I'm not used to, which is being a white, male, straight person. Used to get bullied for very different reasons. This is the first time I'm being bullied for that. And people might say I'm being sensationalizing in that, but no, people are literally attacking me because of the way I look, because of my gender, because of my sexual orientation. Yeah, fun stuff, oddly enough. And I look the way I do now, which is I'm being bullied because of the way I look now, effectively. People are trying to discredit me or say, I have white male privilege, stuff like that, which I understand that. But the funny thing is I look this way because I was bullied into looking this way. And I think most of my followers know I'm part of the neurodivergent community. I am on the spectrum and I'm ADHD. Things that I have no control over. So in high school, I would have multicolored hair. I dressed in different clothing compared to everyone else. I tried differentiating myself as much as possible from everyone else. And I was called gay. I was called a fag. I was called a homo. I figure skated. I was in choir. And because of choir associating with gay boys, I was also therefore lumped in as gay or homo or fag. Because 25 years ago, it wasn't tolerated the way it is now. Being different wasn't tolerated. And I got bullied into looking this way.
It goes on and on for 6.5 minutes. 6.5 minutes of someone missing the point. You had to conform to social norms. And the catcher is, you get to. At the end of the day, you're a cis white man. Guess what? I can't change unless I want to be trans, and then I'm actually putting myself in a more marginalized group. But I'm always going to be a woman. I'm white presenting, but I'm also indigenous. That's not going to change. You can essentially hide. Majority of people can't hide, and there's privilege in that. As you say, you were bullied into it. You had to do it for your job. There's a lot of people who don't have that option. And I really, 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 really need to ram it down these people's throat. As someone who's neurodivergent myself, it's not a fucking excuse. You're not being bullied. You're being held accountable. There is a large difference between being bullied and being held accountable. There is a level of authority. There is a level of influence that you get when you create and foster an audience. That is a choice you make. You are an adult. You understand the consequences of having a social media presence. You don't get to be held with children's gloves for the rest of your life because you're autistic and neurodivergent and ADHD. The same way that women don't get to be coddled. And what I see over and over again is the socialization that boys experience being so fundamentally different, even if they're neurodivergent, especially if they're neurodivergent, because you guys got a pass. Do you know why you got a pass? They didn't even believe that I could have ADHD. They didn't believe women could experience that. That couldn't be a thing that our brains went through. Because we're just so different than men. And that same thought process is the reason women weren't allowed into higher education. Because at one point they believed that women who went into higher education were actually going to shrink their brain. So you do have privilege. You have white privilege and you have male privilege. And that being coddled, that's allowed you to see yourself as a victim in almost all situations. When you were bullied younger as a kid, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's a shitty experience. I went through it too. I also had colored hair. But you're an adult now. You're being held accountable. You're extra being held accountable because you have a platform. And if you were truly holding yourself accountable, you wouldn't make a video saying that I'm neurodivergent. I'm so neurodivergent. I'm sorry. Like, I was bullied as a kid. Go to therapy. Genuinely, truly. If you are still operating from the nervous system of a child, of a teenager, if you haven't been able to get past the fact that you were bullied as a kid for being different, that is a therapist's job to help you work through. And that is your responsibility to go to a therapist and work through it. EMDR, great, does wonders. The left is not eating the left. There are white men and white women trying to enact power structures. And those power structures are rooted in white supremacy. You feel like you can come on the internet and be the voice of marginalized groups, whether that's disabled groups, whether that is women, whether that has to do with mental health, LGBTQIA. You don't get to be a spokesperson for those groups and not be educated on those groups and then paint yourself as the victim for being held accountable. Because once again, the privilege you have is that you're a white man crying about being bullied as a teenager, metaphorically, while Black, brown, queer, disabled people are not given the same grace. They are not given the same lack of accountability because of their marginalization. And what you're trying to do is align yourself with marginalized groups to make it seem like it should be forgiven because you're autistic. I'm so sorry. If you're autistic, you like facts, you like numbers, you like stats, you're very black and white, you're straightforward. I'm the same way. Me and White Supremacy is a great book to deconstruct the fact that you feel equipped to speak on behalf of all these groups and then be upset when you're held accountable for saying the wrong thing. Because what I see over and over again is all of you can just say, you know what, I fucked up. I'm going to do better. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to read these things, do these things. These are my action items. I'm a grown adult. I can make positive change. But instead you come on the internet and you cry, I'm autistic. You're the second leftist content creator who has made that. You can be a victim as a white man, but statistically, not as much as any other group. So if you're going to speak on behalf of marginalized groups and try and put yourself at the head of the totem pole as the white guy, I would suggest opening some fucking books about the subject matters.